Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Divinely Human Podcast. If you've stopped by before, this might be new for you, and you're like, who the heck is this? We used to be the Live Inspired podcast, and now we're the Divinely Human podcast. And I haven't chatted with you guys in a really long time. It's been like 9 months, and for that, I am sorry. I wasn't planning on disappearing. It just kind of happened. But if you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back and hanging out with me. If you haven't been here before, it is so lovely to meet you. I'm so happy to be a part of your day today. And let's just get right on into it. So in the name of rebranding this entire podcast, which is something that I'm very excited about, I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of an overview about where I've been, how my life's been going, what I've been learning in these past 9 months. I mean, it's been crazy, and there's a lot that I feel like I want to share with you guys, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited to share and grow and learn and heal with you. So what do I mean by being divinely human? We are divine incarnate. We are a divine being living a temporary human experience. And that is genuinely how I feel. And that belief feeds into my life in so many different ways. But a little overview on me is I have a tendency to want to be perfect. And we've talked about this before. My first episode on my podcast was my incessant need to be perfect. And I've started to learn over these last couple months the importance of realizing that even in those moments that I feel like I'm not performing my best or I'm not presenting in the best way, even in those moments, I am so divinely perfect, because I'm kind of changing my perspective on what perfection is to me. Because there's so many spots and times in my life in which I'm the most awkward human to walk the planet, and I just don't know how to be a human. And there's times where I definitely don't present the most societally accepted version of myself, because it's just becoming less and less important to me to be perceived in a certain way. And it feels very counterintuitive because I post on the internet, I make videos. Of course, eventually I want social media to be a full-time career for me. Of course, that would be dream life, manifesting that and putting that out there. That would be fantastic. But I think for me, it's the fact of really allowing myself to grow into everything that I am and dwell and soak in everything that I am not. Because in those moments of me dissecting those things that I don't think I am, I find more things that I actually encompass. And it's hard for me to kind of give up this notion of, oh, I need to be composed, I need to be perfect, because I grew up always knowing what to say, always being at the right place at the right time, saying the right thing, being the good person, being the good friend, being the good daughter. I was the good one. My entire brand, or my entire identity, I guess I should say, was being good. I was smart. I did well. I performed high. I was always at the top of my game. And I felt so empty and lonely in those moments of putting on this show, because I felt like nobody really understood who I was. And as I've gotten older now, I'm 22, and I still have so much time to figure out exactly who I want this human to be. I still have so much time to really dive deep into who I want to be, where I want to go, what my life is going to be. I still have so much time to create. But I was reflecting the other day on how much I've spent literally the last 10 years of my life hating everything about myself, from how I look to how I talk, how I present myself. I picked myself apart. And I think that we all do that. Once we hit puberty, we have all of these crazy things going on in our brains and we don't know who we are and we're trying to figure everything out and it's so exhausting and there's so much going on. And it gets really overwhelming. And our natural set point becomes this self-hatred, becomes this self-loathing, becomes this self-deprecation. And I've noticed more and more that it's becoming a way that we all cope with things. Because we were taught to hate ourselves. And it's normal for us to hate ourselves, you know? And it's normal for us to kind of delve into those things that we don't think we are. So recently, I've been trying to dissect that and be like, well, why? Why don't I think that's good enough? Why don't I think I'm pretty enough? Why don't I think I'm intelligent enough? Why do I feel like when I have that, I'll be this? You know, like, why do I feel like if I get to a certain point in my life, then I'll feel successful? And that's because I've been taught in every waking moment that right now in this moment, it's not enough. And it's not okay for me to accept how I am. It's not okay because us as a society are subliminally programmed to always want what we don't have. And I was having a conversation with a coworker the other day about how we're intrinsically unhappy because we're always reaching for the next best thing. And you've probably had this conversation with your friends and you're just like, oh my God, like I'm never satisfied. And that's because we've been taught literally since we were tiniest little babies that in order to be satisfied, you need something new. And when you have that thing, it's no longer interesting and you need something new. So I was tying that to puberty and how when I was going through puberty and I was figuring out that portion of my life, I just like intrinsically like started hating myself and it kind of came out of nowhere. Like one day I was this happy-go-lucky kid and the next day I thought I was fat, I was unhappy, I thought I was ugly, I thought I was unintelligent, I thought I wasn't worthy, I thought no one was ever going to like me, no one was ever going to want to be my friend, no one was ever going to want to date me, yada, 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 yada. And this went on for a really long time to the point of like where I have struggled with an eating disorder. I've struggled with anxiety, I struggle with depression, and I just kind of accepted that it was normal and it was just a part of me to hate myself. Started really thinking about how harmful that is to do that to myself. And not even because it's like mean or whatever, like honestly, to a lot of us, self-hatred is normal now. But what I will say is that I was like, okay, I've spent so much of my time hating myself. And I was really thinking about my trauma and the things that I've been working through and my shadow work. And I was like, all the little me and my inner child and the little me that was a child, all I ever wanted was to feel loved. All I ever wanted was to feel wanted. And I've spent the last 10 years of my life not even willing to give that to myself. Like I have spent the last 10 years of my life, every single moment of every single day, picking myself apart and finding something wrong with me. And I've done that, and then I went into the world and I've tried to find validation externally, and I've tried to find it through guys or controlling what I eat or working out consistently or my job or my career or my friendships or like being exciting and being fun and like being good. Like my whole identity was being good. Like I was the good friend, I was the good daughter, I was the good sister, I was the good worker. And I was just so empty. I was like, it's not enough. I'm not happy. Like, what am I doing wrong? Because I was following all these steps and I was going through all these motions of like, what more could I possibly want? Like maybe if I fall in love, maybe if I like get a good career and I'm financially independent, like, but then like what then? Like what else is going to come after that? Like I can't place all of my need for love in the external world because it's only done me wrong. And don't get me wrong, I am very loved. I am very cared for. I have amazing people in my life who really bring so much joy and happiness into my life. But if the last 4 months of my life have taught me anything, it's that I can have the best people around me. I can have the best circle. I can have the best friends. I can have the best relationship with my family. I can really put in the work to be the best version of myself in my relationships. And I'm still not going to be happy. And I'm still going to find something wrong with it. I'm still going to find, there's always the next thing that will be wrong. And so I was like, what can I do differently that's going to change this for me? And it brought me back to like the person I've been ignoring my entire last 10 years of my life. And that's been myself. And I really was struggling from like 12 till now, 22, on what my identity was. Because if you don't know, I have cerebral palsy. So I was a sick kid growing up. And I put a lot of my identity into being the sick kid, into being the strong one, into being the girl who just always had to get better, who always had to keep pushing, who always had to learn how to walk again, who always had to have another surgery. And like, this isn't like a poor me mindset at all. I don't feel like that at all. I find that part of my life has shaped me to become such a strong person and someone that I'm so proud of. But then I found once I grew up and I started to get better and I started to maintain and the surgeries kind of subsided and my health started to regulate itself, I found that I wasn't able to be proud of myself unless I was the sick kid. And that's so interesting because I didn't realize that was so groundbreaking and that was my all-encompassing identity. I didn't realize that I just saw myself as the sick kid until I wasn't sick anymore. And then I didn't feel worthy if I wasn't sick or getting better or recovering from a surgery. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel supported. And not because there weren't people in my life supporting me. There always has been. But because I wasn't allowing myself to perceive that, because I was like, no. This is how my life has always been. This is who I've always been. And now I'm not. So I am nothing. And so circling back to like me in these last couple months, trying to figure out how to change this cycle that I found myself in of like self-hatred because I'm not sick anymore, or self-hatred because I'm not a child anymore. And it's interesting to me because it always circled back to the one person I was ignoring. And I'm really great in my relationships. I'm very proud of the friend I am, the partner I am, the daughter I am, the sister I am. I am very proud of how I show up in other people's lives. But I have never shown up for myself. And then for the beginning of the year, I made the video on my YouTube channel. I was discussing intentions for the year. I was going to show up for myself. I was going to be happy. I was going to do everything that I told myself I was going to do. I was going to keep my promises to myself. And I did that in a physical sense. I worked out all the time. I ate well. I drank my water. I did my meditations. But emotionally, I was still closed off to ever allowing myself to heal and ever allowing myself to feel better. Because I was so emotionally blocked off, because I did not want to get to know myself, because I didn't think I was anything anymore. I didn't have an identity. I was healthy. I was happy, but I wasn't truly happy, because I found so much validation in being sick that I didn't think that I was worthy without it. I was so tied to this story. I was like, I need to get to know myself. I can't continue to hate myself because this broken little girl who only ever got internal self-validation from being broken and having to get better and having to be strong, that person hasn't had validation or love in a very long time, at least self-validation. And I think that is the most important form of validation, because if it's not you, who's it gonna be? Like, you're with yourself forever. And it's so interesting that I didn't come to the conclusion sooner, because I was just like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not sick anymore, and that's something to be proud of. But I was like, I never truly felt like that. I only felt proud of myself if I was sick and getting better and beating up my body and hoping that, like, it's sad to say, but, like, hoping I would, like, get worse and I would have to have a surgery because then I could prove myself. And so I started talking to myself, but not like me right now. I started talking to the 4-year-old me, the 5-year-old me, the 6-year-old me. And I was like, you are worthy exactly where you are right now. And I understand that we haven't shown you love in a very long time. And it's hard for me to show you love because I was built with the same programs that you were. I'm just an older version of you. And this may sound so silly, but I truly view myself as 4 different parts. So, base level, there is the ego me. Then there is the inner child me, which is the wounded, traumatized, hurt little girl that needs healing and needs love. And then there's the current version of me, the conscious waking version of me, that is working on healing herself and working on healing her trauma. And then there's my higher self. There's the all-knowing me. There's the me that knows how this is going to go and knows where my life is going and can see everything. My higher self is the most divine, awakened version of myself, and that is where I am headed. But all of those versions of me exist simultaneously in this moment. There's no categorizing them as like they all exist separate of one another. Like, they are all very different parts of me that exist and that are thriving or sometimes struggling, And so I started talking to my inner child and being like, okay, I hear you. Because base level, when we talk about inner child healing, is your ego self is operating through the eyes of your inner child. So all the trauma you've been through, all the fear and hurt and anger they've endured, they're controlling your ego. And they're saying, no, we're doing this because we are hurt and we are scared and we are traumatized, for lack of a better word. And we've all experienced trauma, whether it be to varying degrees. Nobody's trauma is any more or less potent than anyone else's, But I personally believe that our inner child is what fuels the ego self to keep us safe and comfortable and stagnant, because the ego is meant to keep us safe and comfortable. And the inner child has not healed and is reliving our old memories, and it's like, we can't do this because it's going to hurt us and we have to stay safe, and I don't want to be hurt again, and I don't want to go through this again. And so we all talk a lot about releasing the ego and letting go of your ego and being kind of like consciously aware of the things you're thinking. But I personally don't believe that. And I don't believe that you can do that without coming to terms and reparenting yourself. And it takes every single day of the rest of your life. That is where a lot of my anxiety comes from. That is where a lot of my depression comes from. And over these last 3-ish weeks, I've really taken steps to be like, okay, we're feeling anxious right now, and I understand that, but we're safe, and thank you so much for trying to protect me, and thank you so much for trying to keep me safe in this moment, but we're good right now. There's nothing that can hurt us right now. I understand that you've been through things that have made you feel like this situation isn't safe for you, but I've got you. And I appreciate you, and I see you, and I hear you, and you're enough, and it's okay. We're okay. I've got you now. Because I think that we forget that when a child becomes traumatized, we internalize that into our DNA, and that becomes a part of who we are until we transmute that and heal that at the highest level. And that can either come in many forms. A lot of Western cultures use therapy, or if you're a spiritual person, maybe you use Reiki or EFT or something like that. Or maybe you just journal, or maybe you just talk to yourself, And I have really found myself working to maintain my authenticity, and truly this time around. Because it's so easy to say, like, oh yeah, I'm myself. I'm always being myself. But then, like, when you have those moments of you want to do something and you're like, oh no, I'm not going to do that because people are going to judge me and that's embarrassing. And why would I even want to try? That's not you being authentically yourself. And that's not you being worried that other people are going to judge you. That's you judging yourself. And in turn, that hurts the inner you. And I guess I'm kind of talking in circles here, but when I'm self-soothing my inner child, it's like, okay, like that's not right now in this moment. That is me emotionally reliving a memory in which I feel like some part of me thinks that this situation is unsafe for me. And those feelings are valid. I think we're always so quick to invalidate our own feelings because we don't want to be a burden, even to ourselves, because we don't have the time, we don't have the energy, we're tired, we're exhausted. The last thing we want to think about is our feelings. The last thing we want to do is reparent ourselves. The last thing we want to do is self-soothe ourselves. And we might be angry and we might be like, well, why the heck do I even have to? Like, I shouldn't have to reparent myself, and I shouldn't have to relive my trauma, and I shouldn't have to. Like, I just shouldn't have had to go through this. And that's totally fair. You're right. And I'm sorry that you had to go through things that made you feel like you weren't divinely human and you weren't perfect exactly as you are. I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, we are all raised by people who didn't heal themselves. And then those people raised by people who bottled things up and didn't heal themselves. And these are generational wounds that we are healing. This is not just coming from your parents or their parents or the parents before them. This is coming from generations upon generations. And in turn, we all have things that we need to reparent ourselves about because we didn't have a fighting chance, and that's no one's fault, As we move farther into these next generations, this kind of stuff is going to become more normal, and it's going to become more talked about, and it's going to become something that's normal and standardized. But right now, we are on the leading edge of healing. And it's interesting that we don't feel like we should have to do this. But if we flip our perspective to, we get to do this. Like, you get to be the one that breaks generational trauma. You get to be the one that finally breaks the cycle. You were chosen to break the cycle. Your ancestors chose you. And they're there cheering you on, guiding you, supporting you, loving you. But you need to give that to yourself as well. And I have spent so much time reflecting on why I hate myself or hated. There's still little pieces of me that of course I would like to change. I've been programmed by society for a really long time to feel like I should look a certain way. But with that being said, the more I heal the inner stuff, and the more I kind of just spend time with myself and allow myself to be excited by the little things, and like just even the things that I find silly or goofy or weird, just allowing myself to milk that and be like, okay, we're good. It's cool, like even allowing myself to just be like, yeah, we're good. It's exciting. I'm going to go for a drive. I'm going to listen to Irish music. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to write stories. I'm going to journal. I'm going to dance. Like, the more I allow myself to be playful in who I am and to accept those parts of myself that are weird and that I love, and my obsession with Harry Potter and all these things, the more I allow myself to just be myself, the more beautiful I feel like I become externally. And I feel like it's like literal physical changes. And it's so interesting to me because I have spent the last week or so, like looking in the mirror and being like, wow, I'm beautiful. And not even in like a way I'm like that I feel like I'm like a supermodel or whatever. But even if I did, there's nothing wrong with that. Like the fact that I feel like I have to justify the fact that I think I'm beautiful, like that should tell me something. But we don't allow ourselves to see ourselves like that because we're always seeing ourselves in like a broken, scared, hurt, traumatized, victimized person who's had people treat us wrong and who's had moments in which we feel like are proof that we're not beautiful or we're not worthy or we're not supported or we're not loved or we're not lovable or we're not valuable. And that is complete and utter bullshit. And like when I can look at myself and finally be like, I am so, so, so perfect exactly as I am. And even if it is not society's version of perfect, I am so good. I am so happy. And like that only came when I chose to honor myself emotionally through my inner child work and accept that like that broken girl, she's not broken, she's adorable, she's thriving, she's excited, she's loved, and I need to tell myself that every single day. You know, it's waking up in the morning and being like, Steph, I love you. It's looking in the mirror and being like, Steph, you're so beautiful. Your smile's adorable. It's doing things I love and it's like, Steph, you are so fun. Steph, you are so awesome exactly as you are. This is so cool that you're into this stuff. Like validating myself instead of looking for it externally from people who have been trained to hate themselves is so different. Because when you say it to yourself, you can tell if you mean it. And then if you don't, you just have more work to do. But that doesn't mean what you think about yourself is wrong. The only thing that you could ever think that would be wrong is that you're not good enough. I hope that made some sense. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy to be here and I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to do this and share my voice with you guys because truly speaking about things that I cared about is what makes me the happiest in the world, and I'm so excited about it. So thank you so much for listening. I will see you guys next week. I'm pretty sure upload days are Tuesdays now. So, I mean, if you want to hang out with me on a Divinely Human Tuesday, please come back. I would love to spend my day with you, and thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you endlessly, and yeah, I love you, and I love the little you. And I'm so excited. I'm so happy. I hope that this brought a smile to you and brought you some joy. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much. Bye.